Measuring fats and semi-solid ingredients. To measure fats and semi-solid ingredients, we'll use the same methods. So, for example, while shortening and margarine and butter are fats, the peanut butter, sour cream, and yogurt, there are some other thicker, viscous substances that you might need to measure as ingredients for different recipes that you'll want to follow these same guidelines. There are two methods that we're going to go over and a few tools. The first method we're going to talk about for measuring fats is called the stick method. And the stick method is used most often for butter or margarine when they're called for in a recipe. You can also buy sticks of shortening in the baking aisle, but they do tend to cost a little bit more for the convenience. However, depending on what you're making, it may be worth the extra money. So the stick method is used with butter and margarine because the sticks of butter and margarine come in wrappers, and there's 4 sticks in a pound, and the wrapper has markings. So you can see that this wrapper has tablespoons marked, and it also has some other key measurements marked on the wrapper: a 1/4 cup, a 1/2 cup, and a 1/3 of a cup. So you just follow the measurements on the wrapper, the markings on the wrapper for the measurement. So for example, if I needed 1 tablespoon of butter, I would simply take the butter knife and at the 1 tablespoon line, cut off a tablespoon. And then put the other 7 back until I was ready to use it again. So it's important to remember that a stick of butter or a stick of margarine is equal to a 1/2 cup. When you are baking, you should never use spread margarines. They are not good for baking. They have a lot of air whipped into them, which makes them great for spreading on your toast or your English muffin, but it makes them terrible for baking because you don't get the right amount of fat, and so it can alter how your recipe turns out. And while all butters are butter, for the most part when it comes to baking, all margarines are not created the same. When you are choosing a margarine to bake with, you want to make sure that it is at least 80% vegetable oil. Anything less than that, it's going to change how your recipe turns out. So butter is more natural. It comes from milk. It's made through a churning process. Margarine is not naturally a solid at a room temperature or even in the refrigerator. Margarine is vegetable oil that has been altered chemically by moving a hydrogen atom to make it a solid at room temperature. And some margarines have a lot of water added in the process of turning them from that liquid to a solid. And you can't tell the differences easily just by looking at the 2 sticks side by side. So you have to make sure you pay attention to what your box tells you. So at least 80% vegetable oil. You can also look on the back. You want to see 100 calories per tablespoon. You want to see 11 grams of fat per tablespoon as well. So those are some ways to know that you have a quality margarine for baking with, to make sure that you get the best results out of whatever baked item you're preparing. So the next thing I'd like to show you is the dry measuring cup method for measuring those semi-solid ingredients. So what you would have to do, and the same would be true for shortening or peanut butter, yogurt, sour cream, any of the things that I showed you earlier. I'm going to demonstrate with peanut butter. So you're going to take that dry measuring cup, take your ingredient, like I said, in this case mine is peanut butter, use a rubber scraper to get that into the measuring cup, and you have to press it down to make sure that you get rid of any air pockets. You don't want to measure the air, you want to measure the peanut butter. So you have to press it into the measuring cup so that it heaps over the top making sure that it's completely filled with peanut butter and not air. And then when it gets to the top, you need to level it off like you would anything in a dry measuring cup or just about anything. The nice thing about this rubber scraper is it has a great straight edge on the side. So I can simply use that. So there's my half cup of peanut butter. And now that I've packed it all down into the measuring cup, now the key to make sure that my recipe turns out correctly is to get everything out of that measuring cup. So again, I have to use that rubber scraper and make sure that all of the peanut butter that I measured gets into my recipe. And you can see this proves a challenge because the peanut butter, and true of any of these semi-solids, they like to stick. They're very clingy. So you'll have to go several swipes to get as much as you can out of the cup. And even at that, you might find that there's some that just completely escapes you. It's minimal, but it does happen. If you find yourself doing a lot of cooking, this tool is a worthwhile investment. This is a 2-cup size Wonder Cup, and you can find other brands as well. Some of them work just as well, some of them do not, but I like this particular one. So what I do is if I want a half cup of peanut butter, I find the cup measures. You can see it has ounces, it has tablespoons, it has metrics, pints. So I'm going to find the half cup measure right here, and I'm going to press the yellow inside so that it lines up with the half cup measurement mark. And then I'm going to hold my Wonder Cup with my hand under that clear piece so that it cannot move while I'm packing the peanut butter in. So just like I did with the regular dry measuring cup, because really a Wonder Cup is just a fancy dry measuring cup, I'm going to take my peanut butter, again holding that so that the clear portion on the outside can't move. And look, I can see if I have air pockets. I couldn't see if I had air pockets in the regular dry measuring cup. I just had to press and guess. So I can see if I have air pockets. Makes those really easy to make sure that I get rid of them. I can press the ingredient right towards that area. And then again, I'm gonna level it off with that straight back of my measuring, or of my rubber scraper here. To make sure I have a precise amount of peanut butter. Now this next part, so I already had an easier time measuring this because I could clearly see if I had air pockets or not. It was easy to level off at the top. I can double check and make sure that it didn't move before I dispense it out of here. But this is probably my favorite part of using the Wonder Cup. Instead of having to dig it back out of the measuring cup, you simply press the inner portion back up. It slides right out. One swipe of your rubber scraper and everything is in your mixing bowl. So if you have to measure small amounts of fat or semi-solids, and it's not a tablespoon of butter or margarine that you could use the stick method, you're going to use those measuring spoons, scoop things up, make sure again that it has no air bubbles, just like when you measured with the dry measuring cup. And then again, just like the dry measuring cup, we have to scrape it clean out of the spoon. as best we can. Now the Wonder Cup does have measurements for tablespoons. So as long as you had at least 2 tablespoons called for in the recipe, you could substitute the Wonder Cup instead of the regular measuring spoon. But that would be how you measure small amounts of fats and semi-solids using measuring spoons.